There's a country in West Central Africa that almost nobody talks about, yet it holds everything you could want from an African adventure, and for the price of what most people spend on groceries. In 2 weeks, while millions flock to Kenya's safaris or Morocco's souks, Cameroon sits quietly in the corner, practically waving at tourists who never seem to notice. But here's the thing about being ignored: it means the prices stay low, the culture stays authentic, and the experiences remain unspoiled. Comment 1 if you've ever heard of Cameroon before this video, because I'm betting most of you haven't. This Central African nation, squeezed between Nigeria and Chad, packs more diversity into its borders than countries 10 times more famous. They call it Africa in miniature. And once you see what $500 a month can get you here, you'll understand why smart travelers are keeping this place their best-kept secret. We're already talking about a country where your monthly rent might cost less than a fancy dinner bag, home where the women are some of the most stunning on the continent, and where you can climb an active volcano, swim in the Atlantic Ocean, and spot elephants in the wild, all without breaking the bank. But before you start packing your bags, let's take a proper look at what makes Cameroon tick. Because this isn't just another budget destination. This is a place that could completely change how you think about Africa. Cameroon doesn't fit into neat little boxes, and that's exactly what makes it fascinating. When French and British colonizers carved up this region, they created something unique, a country that speaks both French and English, where you can have a conversation in Parisian accented French in Yaoundé, then switch to Queen's English in Bamenda, all while hearing dozens of local languages filling the markets around you. Over 150 ethnic groups call this place home, each bringing their own traditions, foods, and ways of seeing the world. The geography here reads like a wish list for adventure travelers. In the south, you've got dense rainforests where lowland gorillas still roam free and butterflies the size of dinner plates flutter between ancient trees. Head north, and the landscape transforms into golden savannahs dotted with baobab trees and traditional villages where life moves to a different rhythm. Along the coast, black volcanic beaches stretch for miles, while inland, Mount Cameroon, the highest peak in West Africa, looms over everything like a sleeping giant. But what really sets Cameroon apart is how all these different landscapes and cultures somehow work together. You might start your morning watching fishermen haul in nets full of fresh catch. Along the Douala coast, spend your afternoon bargaining for hand-woven fabrics in a Bamenda market, and end your day listening to traditional drumming in a village where smartphones and ancient rituals coexist perfectly. The French influence shows up in the croissants at breakfast and the wine selection at dinner, while British colonial history explains why everyone switches effortlessly between French and English. The climate varies wildly depending on where you are, but that's part of the charm. The coastal regions stay humid and tropical year-round, perfect if you love that warm, sticky feeling that says you're definitely not in Kansas anymore. Move inland toward the mountains, and you'll find cooler temperatures that feel almost European, especially in cities like Bamenda, where you might actually need a light jacket in the evening. Up north, the dry season brings clear skies and perfect wildlife watching weather, while the wet season transforms the landscape into something so green it looks artificial. This diversity isn't just geographic, it runs through every aspect of daily life. Cameroonians have mastered the art of mixing traditional and modern in ways that would make your head spin. You'll see women in stunning traditional dresses, checking WhatsApp messages on the latest smartphones, or watch young men wearing Manchester United jerseys perform ceremonial dances that have been passed down for centuries. The country pulses with this constant blend of old and new, creating an energy that's impossible to replicate anywhere else. Daily life in Cameroon moves to its own beat, and once you tune into that rhythm, everything starts to make sense. In major cities like Douala and Yaoundé, mornings begin early with the sound of street vendors calling out their wares in that sing-song voice that somehow cuts through all other noise. Coffee sellers balance metal pots on their heads while navigating traffic that would terrify most Western drivers. And the smell of fresh bread from corner bakeries mixes with exhaust fumes and tropical flowers to create a scent that you'll never forget. The workday officially starts around 8 a.m. But don't expect German punctuality here. Cameroonians have a more relaxed relationship with time that Westerners often find frustrating until they realize it is actually liberating. When someone says, "I'll meet you at 2," they mean sometime in the general vicinity of 2, give or take an hour, depending on traffic, family obligations, and whether there's something interesting happening along the way. This isn't laziness. It's a different way of prioritizing what matters in life. Family connections dominate everything in Cameroon. Extended families can include dozens of people, and the concept of individualism that drives Western culture gets replaced by a collective approach to life that is both beautiful and occasionally overwhelming for outsiders. Children belong to everyone in the community. Elderly relatives are respected and cared for rather than shipped off to nursing homes, and decisions get made collectively rather than unilaterally. It's a social safety net that actually works, built on relationships rather than institutions. Markets form the social and economic heart of Cameroonian communities, and they're unlike anything you've experienced unless you've spent serious time in Africa. These aren't sterile grocery stores with fluorescent lighting and self-checkout machines. These are sensory explosions where women in colorful wraps sell everything, from live chickens to phone credits, where the sound of haggling in multiple languages creates a constant background buzz, and where the line between commerce and socializing disappears entirely. The fashion scene in Cameroon deserves its own documentary. Women here have turned getting dressed into an art form that would make Milan Fashion Week look understated. Traditional fabrics with patterns so intricate they seem to move on their own get combined with modern cuts and accessories to create looks that are simultaneously timeless and cutting edge. And the men aren't slouching either. A well-dressed Cameroonian man in his traditional baobou commands respect in any room. But perhaps the most striking thing about daily life here is how technology gets woven into traditional patterns without destroying them. Mobile money has revolutionized commerce in ways that make American banking look primitive. Yet traditional healers still play important roles alongside modern doctors. Social media connects young Cameroonians to global trends, but ancient storytelling traditions continue to pass down wisdom from generation to generation. When it comes to food, Cameroon doesn't mess around. This is a country that has taken the best parts of West African, Central African, and French cuisines, thrown them into a pot together, and created something entirely new. Ndole, the unofficial national dish, perfectly represents this fusion approach. Bitter leaves cooked with ground nuts, dried fish, and whatever meat happens to be available, served with plantains, yams, or cassava. It is comfort food that tells the story of a country that has learned to make the most of whatever ingredients it has on hand. Street food here operates on a level that would make food truck entrepreneurs weep with envy. Every corner seems to have someone grilling something delicious over charcoal, and the smell follows you everywhere. Brochettes, chunks of beef or goat meat seasoned with local spices and grilled to perfection, cost pocket change, but taste like they should be served in expensive restaurants. Fish fresh from the Atlantic gets seasoned with hot peppers and grilled right on the beach, while vendors sell roasted plantains that caramelize perfectly in the tropical heat. But the real revelation for most visitors is achu, a dish from the western regions that consists of pounded yam served with a rich yellow sauce, made from palm oil, spices, and whatever protein you can afford. It's eaten with your hands, which initially horrifies visitors who have been conditioned to believe that utensils are necessary for civilized dining. But there is something primal and satisfying about eating with your hands that connects you to the food in ways that forks and knives never could. Palm wine represents everything beautiful and problematic about Cameroonian food culture. Fresh palm wine, tapped from palm trees and consumed within hours, tastes like lightly alcoholic coconut water with a complexity that wine connoisseurs would kill for. But palm wine left to ferment becomes a different beast entirely, stronger, more sour, and capable of producing hangovers that feel like personal attacks. Locals know the difference instinctively. Visitors learn through painful trial and error. The dining culture here emphasizes sharing in ways that American individualism finds almost uncomfortable. Meals are communal affairs where everyone eats from the same pot using their hands, and the idea of ordering your own separate dish seems almost antisocial. This extends to restaurant culture, where portions are designed for sharing and where the phrase each person for themselves simply doesn't translate properly into local languages. Local markets overflow with ingredients that would cost fortunes in Western specialty stores. Massive avocados sell for cents, mangoes drip with juice that stains everything orange, and vegetables, so fresh they may practically still growing, get sold at prices that make organic food shoppers back home weep with envy. The spice vendors alone could supply every Indian restaurant in America, and they're happy to explain exactly how to use each aromatic powder and dried pepper. Coffee culture here deserves special mention, particularly since Cameroon produces some of Africa's best coffee but exports most of it to Europe. What stays behind gets roasted by street vendors using techniques passed down through generations, creating brews so strong they practically vibrate. Locals drink it black and sweet, often with a side of fresh bread that comes warm from wood-fired ovens scattered throughout neighborhoods. The women of Cameroon possess a confidence and style that stops conversations mid-sentence. This isn't about Western beauty standards or Instagram-perfect poses. It's something deeper and more magnetic. Cameroonian women carry themselves with a self-assurance that comes from knowing they belong to cultures that have always celebrated female strength and intelligence. They move through the world like they own it, because in many ways, they do. Traditional beauty rituals here go far beyond what you find in any Western spa. Women use natural ingredients that have been perfecting skin and hair for thousands of years. Shea butter, palm oil, and various plant extracts that create glows so natural they seem to come from within. The elaborate head wraps and traditional dresses aren't costumes. They're expressions of cultural identity that have been refined over generations to emphasize grace and elegance. But modern Cameroonian women aren't trapped in traditional roles. Education rates among women have skyrocketed in recent decades, and professional women dominate fields from banking to medicine to technology. You'll meet female engineers who can switch seamlessly from discussing complex technical problems to explaining traditional cooking methods, or businesswomen who negotiate million-dollar deals while wearing traditional dress that would stop traffic in Paris. Dating culture here operates according to different rules than what most Westerners expect. Relationships tend to develop more slowly, with families playing much larger roles in partner selection and approval. The idea of casual dating exists, but serious relationships quickly involve extended families, community members, and social expectations that can overwhelm visitors accustomed to more individualistic approaches to romance. Nightlife in major cities offers everything from traditional dance performances to modern nightclubs that would look out of place in Lagos or Johannesburg. But the real social scene happens in more informal settings, compound parties where entire neighborhoods gather to celebrate weddings, naming ceremonies, or just the fact that it's Saturday night. The music ranges from traditional drumming to modern Afrobeats, often within the same evening. What strikes most male visitors is how direct and confident Cameroonian women can be. In cultures where women are expected to be subtle or indirect, Cameroonian women often say exactly what they mean when they mean it. This can be refreshing or intimidating, depending on what you're used to, but it eliminates a lot of the guessing games that plague dating in other parts of the world. Marriage customs vary dramatically between different ethnic groups and regions, but they all emphasize community involvement and family connections in ways that make Western weddings look like simple courthouse ceremonies. Some traditional ceremonies last for days and involve entire villages, with rituals that symbolically unite not just two people, but to families and their histories. The respect for women in traditional Cameroonian society often surprises visitors who expect more conservative attitudes. Many ethnic groups have histories of female leaders and warriors, and that cultural memory continues to influence how women are perceived and treated today. It's not universal, like everywhere. Progress is uneven, but the foundation exists for gender equality in ways that many societies are still struggling to achieve. Cameroon's festival calendar reads like a cultural anthropologist's dream journal. Every month brings celebrations that have been refined over centuries, each one offering insights into the values and histories of the people who created them. These aren't tourist performances put on for foreign cameras. They're living traditions that continue to evolve while maintaining their essential character. The Ngondo Festival, held annually in Douala, represents everything magical about Cameroonian culture. For an entire month, the Sawa people celebrate their connection to water and ancestors through ceremonies that blend spirituality, artistry, and pure joy. The highlight involves a ritual where chosen individuals enter the Wari River to communicate with water spirits, bringing back prophecies and blessings for the coming year. Skeptics might dismiss this as superstition, but watching the ceremony unfolds with such reverence and community involvement makes belief seem almost irrelevant. Traditional dance during Ngondo tells stories that predate written language. Performers in elaborate masks and costumes recreate historical events, legends, and spiritual beliefs through movements that have been passed down through generations. The drumming alone creates rhythms so complex and hypnotic that they seem to bypass conscious thought and speak directly to something primal in human nature. Foreign visitors often find themselves swaying to beats they don't understand, but somehow feel in their bones. The Ngwan Festival of the Bamoon people offers a completely different, but equally mesmerizing experience. This celebration of kingship and cultural identity transforms Foundman into a living museum where centuries-old traditions play out in real time. Traditional warriors perform battle reenactments that are both artistic performance and historical education, while craftspeople demonstrate techniques for creating everything from intricate bronze sculptures to elaborately woven textiles. What makes these festivals particularly remarkable is how they integrate modern elements without losing their traditional essence. Young people participate alongside elders. Smartphones capture moments that were once preserved only in memory, and social media spreads awareness of cultural practices that might otherwise remain hidden. The festivals serve as cultural preservation systems that adapt to changing times while maintaining their core purpose of connecting communities to their histories and identities. Music permeates every aspect of festival life, but it's not background entertainment. It's the primary language through which stories get told, emotions get expressed, and communities get united. Different regions have developed distinct musical styles that reflect their histories and environments. The rhythmic patterns of forest-dwelling peoples differ dramatically from those of savanna communities, yet they all share common elements that identify them as uniquely Cameroonian. Religious celebrations blend Christian, Islamic, and traditional African elements in ways that would give theological purists nightmares but create wonderfully rich spiritual experiences. Christmas celebrations might include traditional drumming and dance alongside hymns in French and English, while Islamic festivals incorporate local customs that predate the arrival of Islam by centuries. This religious syncretism reflects Cameroon's practical approach to spirituality. Use whatever works, respect what doesn't belong to you, and focus on building community rather than theological purity. The craft markets that pop up during festivals showcase artistic traditions that European museums would kill to possess. Hand-carved masks that capture spiritual essences with stunning simplicity. Textiles with patterns so complex they seem mathematical. And bronze work that demonstrates technical skills passed down through families for generations. These aren't souvenirs manufactured in Chinese factories. They're authentic cultural artifacts created by artists who learn their techniques from masters, stretching back centuries. $500 a month in Cameroon doesn't just cover survival. It can fund a lifestyle that would cost thousands anywhere else. But understanding how to make that money stretch requires learning local systems and abandoning Western expectations about how things should work. The key is flexibility and a willingness to adapt to local ways of doing things, rather than trying to recreate American or European lifestyles in an African context. Housing costs vary dramatically, depending on location and standards, but even in major cities, you can find decent accommodations for a fraction of what you'd pay elsewhere. In smaller cities like Bamenda or Bafoussam, a modest apartment might cost $50 to $100 per month, while the same budget in Douala or Yaoundé gets you something smaller, but still perfectly livable. The trick is understanding what livable means in the local context. Consistent electricity might be luxury rather than necessity, and hot water on demand isn't always guaranteed. Food costs represent where the real savings lie. Local ingredients cost almost nothing by Western standards. And if you eat what locals eat rather than trying to recreate Western meals with imported ingredients, your food budget might be less than $100 per month. Street food meals cost $1 to $2. Local restaurants serve generous portions for $3 to $5. And cooking at home with fresh local ingredients can produce restaurant-quality meals for pocket change. Transportation operates on different principles than what most Westerners expect. But once you understand the system, it becomes incredibly affordable and efficient. Motorcycle taxis, known locally as Benskin or Benskin, can take you anywhere in most cities for less than $1. These aren't the safest transportation option by Western standards, but they're fast, cheap, and driven by people who know every shortcut and back alley in their territory. Healthcare costs remain remarkably low, though quality varies significantly between urban and rural areas. Basic medical care costs a fraction of what Americans pay, and even serious medical procedures might cost hundreds rather than thousands of dollars. The challenge is finding qualified practitioners and facilities that meet international standards, but for routine care and basic emergencies. Local healthcare can be both effective and affordable. Internet and communication costs have dropped dramatically in recent years, with mobile data plans offering generous allowances for $10 to $20 per month. Wi-Fi availability varies, but major cities have reasonable connectivity, and the mobile network reaches most populated areas. This makes remote work possible for digital nomads willing to adapt to occasional connectivity issues. Entertainment and social activities cost almost nothing if you participate in local culture. Rather than trying to recreate Western nightlife, traditional festivals, community celebrations, and social gatherings provide endless entertainment for free, while even paid events like concerts or sporting events cost a few dollars at most. The key is engaging with local communities rather than trying to find Western-style entertainment. In African settings, the hidden costs come from trying to maintain Western living standards rather than adapting to local ones. Imported goods cost multiples of local alternatives. Western restaurants charge premium prices for mediocre food. And trying to live in Western-style housing with consistent electricity and hot water can quickly drain a budget. The expats who thrive in Cameroon are those who embrace local lifestyles. Rather than trying to recreate home, salary expectations for local employment remain low by Western standards, but costs of living are proportionally lower. Teaching English, working for NGOs, or starting small businesses can provide sustainable incomes for those planning to stay long-term. The informal economy offers opportunities for entrepreneurial spirits willing to learn local business practices and build relationships. Within communities, transportation in Cameroon operates according to its own logic, and once you understand that logic, getting around becomes part of the adventure rather than a frustrating obstacle. The motorcycle taxi system alone deserves anthropological study. Thousands of young men on Chinese motorcycles creating an informal public transportation network that is more efficient than anything city planners could design. Benskin drivers represent a unique subculture within Cameroonian society. They're part taxi driver, part tour guide, part local information network. Need to know where to find the best food at 2 a.m.? Ask your Benskin driver. Looking for someone who speaks a particular local language? Your driver knows a guy. Want to understand local politics or social dynamics? Spend a few days riding Benskin and you'll get education worth a graduate degree. The safety issues with motorcycle taxis are real. Accidents happen, and helmets aren't always available. But millions of Cameroonians use the system daily without major incidents. The key is choosing experienced drivers, avoiding rush or chaos when possible, and accepting that some level of risk comes with the convenience and affordability. Most expats quickly become comfortable with Benskin travel once they realize it is often faster and more reliable than other transportation options. Shared taxis and minibuses handle longer distances and larger groups, operating on routes that connect every major town and city. These vehicles pack more people than seems physically possible, follow schedules that exist more in theory than practice, and create social experiences that range from delightful to uncomfortable depending on your tolerance for crowded spaces and loud music. But they're cheap, they eventually reach their destinations, and they offer glimpses into local life that private transportation can't match. Intercity travel reveals Cameroon's infrastructure challenges and opportunities. Roads range from smooth highways to rutted dirt paths that require four-wheel drive and serious patience. The journey between major cities might take twice as long as maps suggest, but the scenery along the way makes delays feel less frustrating. Rain can turn decent roads into muddy obstacle courses, while dry season travel means dealing with dust that penetrates everything. Private transportation is possible but expensive by local standards. Renting a car costs more per day than many locals earn in a week, and driving requires skills and patience that most Western drivers haven't developed. Traffic laws exist, but enforcement is inconsistent, and driving styles that would cause road rage incidents elsewhere are just normal methods of navigation in Cameroonian cities. The aviation system connects Cameroon to other African countries and Europe, but domestic flights are limited and expensive. Most internal travel happens by road, which means accepting longer journey times in exchange for lower costs and more interesting experiences. The national airline has improved significantly in recent years, though delays and schedule changes remain common enough to require flexible travel plans. Walking remains the primary transportation method for many Cameroonians, and cities are generally walkable for those accustomed to pedestrian travel in developing countries. Sidewalks exist sporadically, street lighting is inconsistent, and traffic patterns require constant attention. But walking allows for spontaneous interactions and discoveries that motorized transportation misses. Water transportation plays important roles in coastal and riverside communities, with everything from dugout canoes to larger boats connecting islands, and riverine settlements to main population centers. These journeys offer some of Cameroon's most spectacular scenery, but require patience with schedules that depend more on tides and weather than precise timetables. Cameroon's natural attractions remain criminally underrated by international tourism, which means you can experience some of Africa's most spectacular landscapes without fighting crowds or paying premium prices. The diversity packed into this relatively small country rivals what you find across entire continents elsewhere, and the lack of tourist infrastructure means experiences remain authentic rather than commercialized. Mount Cameroon dominates the landscape around Bui and Lim like a sleeping giant that occasionally reminds everyone it is still active. This is West Africa's highest peak and one of the world's most accessible active volcanoes, yet it receives a fraction of the attention given to East African mountains. The climb to the summit takes 2 to 3 days depending on your fitness level and weather conditions, passing through multiple climate zones that showcase everything from tropical rainforest to alpine desert. The mountain's volcanic activity created some of the most fertile soils in Africa, supporting agriculture that feeds much of the region, but it also created the black sand beaches around Lim that provide some of the most striking coastal scenery on the continent. Swimming in the Atlantic Ocean while looking up at an active volcano creates a surreal experience that few places on Earth can match. While a national park in the far north offers wildlife viewing that rivals East Africa's famous parks, but with a fraction of the crowds and costs. Dry season concentrations of elephants, lions, giraffes, and dozens of antelope species create spectacular viewing opportunities, while the park's location in the Savannahs region provides landscapes and cultural interactions completely different from southern Cameroon. The park's seasonal patterns mean timing visits requires some planning. Wet season turns roads into impassable mud while dispersing wildlife, but dry season concentrates animals around remaining water sources for incredible viewing opportunities. Local guides provide insights into animal behavior and ecological relationships that enhance the experience beyond simple wildlife photography. Korop National Park protects some of Africa's oldest rainforests, with trees that were growing when European explorers first reached the coast. The biodiversity here boggles the mind, Hundreds of bird species, dozens of primate species, and plant communities so complex that scientists are still cataloging new species. Hiking trails range from easy nature walks to multi-day expeditions that require serious preparation. And local guides, the park's remoteness means facilities remain basic. But that's part of its charm. This is authentic wilderness experience without the amenities that insulate visitors from nature's realities. The sounds, smells, and sights of primary rainforest create sensory experiences that no zoo or botanical garden can replicate. Lake Nios carries a darker story that demonstrates nature's power and unpredictability. This crater lake released a cloud of carbon dioxide in 1986 that killed over 1,700 people, creating one of the world's strangest natural disasters. Today, the gassing systems prevent similar tragedies, and the lake has become a pilgrimage site for those interested in geology, disaster management, and human resilience. The Mandara Mountains along the northern border with Nigeria offer hiking opportunities through landscapes that feel more like fantasy novel illustrations than real geography. Rock formations, traditional architecture, and cultural practices here have remained relatively unchanged for centuries, providing glimpses into ways of life that predate colonial contact. Coastal attractions extend far beyond beaches, though the beaches themselves range from spectacular to otherworldly. Kribi offers white sand beaches lined with palm trees that match any tropical paradise, while Lim's black volcanic beaches create dramatic contrast between dark sand, white surf, and green vegetation. Fishing communities along the coast maintain traditional lifestyles while adapting to modern economic pressures, creating cultural experiences that blend old and new in fascinating ways.
Petty crime exists in urban areas, particularly pickpocketing and opportunistic theft. But violent crime against tourists remains relatively rare. The key is avoiding obvious displays of wealth, staying aware of surroundings, and learning to read social situations before they become problematic. Most crime targeting foreigners is economically motivated rather than violent, which means simple precautions can eliminate most risks. Political stability has improved significantly in recent years. Though some regions remain problematic due to conflicts spilling over from neighboring countries, the Anglophone regions have experienced tensions that occasionally affect travel, but the vast majority of the country remains stable and safe for visitors who stay informed and avoid obviously problematic areas. Healthcare quality varies dramatically between urban and rural areas, with major cities offering medical care that meets international standards, while remote areas might have only basic facilities. Travel insurance becomes essential, not because healthcare is unavailable, but because quality healthcare might require travel to major cities or even medical evacuation to Europe. Preventive healthcare measures remain crucial, particularly vaccination against yellow fever, which is required for entry, and malaria prevention, which is essential year-round. Water quality varies, and stomach problems are common among new arrivals who haven't adapted to local food and water. Basic precautions, bottled water, cooked food, insect repellent, prevent most health problems. Education opportunities for expat families exist primarily in major cities, with international schools offering curricula that meet Western standards. These schools cater primarily to diplomatic families and international business communities, but spaces are available for other expat families willing to pay premium prices. Local education system quality varies widely, but some schools provide excellent education at much lower costs. The legal system blends French civil law, English common law, and traditional legal practices in ways that can confuse visitors accustomed to single legal traditions. Understanding basic legal requirements, visa compliance, registration with authorities, respect for local customs prevents most legal problems. The key is working with local lawyers or fixers who understand how systems actually work rather than how they are supposed to work. Emergency services exist but may not meet Western standards for response times or equipment. Embassy registration becomes important for serious emergencies that might require international intervention or evacuation. Most problems can be resolved through local channels if you have appropriate contacts and cultural understanding. Visa requirements for Cameroon have simplified in recent years with the introduction of electronic visa systems. But the process still requires advanced planning and patience with bureaucratic procedures that move at their own pace. Understanding these requirements prevents arrival problems that could ruin carefully planned trips. Most visitors need visas arranged in advance, though some nationalities qualify for visa and arrival programs. The electronic visa system works when it works, but technical problems can cause delays that require backup plans. Processing times vary, and during busy seasons or national holidays, delays become common. Starting the visa process well in advance prevents last-minute scrambles that might derail travel plans. Entry requirements include proof of yellow fever vaccination, return tickets, and sufficient funds for the intended stay. Immigration officials have significant discretion in interpreting these requirements, as having documentation that exceeds minimum requirements prevents problems at borders. Bribery attempts should be avoided, but understanding that processing fees might be collected informally helps navigate situations without creating confrontations. Money changing operates through both official and unofficial channels, with significant differences in exchange rates and convenience. Banks offer security but poor rates and limited hours, while informal money changers offer better rates but require street smarts to avoid scams. Mobile money systems have revolutionized financial transactions for locals, but visitors might need time to understand and access these systems. Communication systems have improved dramatically with widespread mobile phone coverage and increasing internet availability. SIM cards are cheap and widely available, though registration requirements have become more strict in recent years. Internet speeds vary dramatically by location, but major cities have reasonable connectivity for basic business and communication needs. Cultural etiquette in Cameroon emphasizes respect for age, hierarchy, and community relationships in ways that individualistic Western cultures often find constraining. Learning basic greetings in local languages, understanding appropriate dress codes, and showing respect for traditional authorities prevents cultural misunderstandings that could create problems. Business practices blend modern international standards with traditional relationship building, approaches that require patience and cultural sensitivity. Contracts might be less important than personal relationships. Deadlines might be suggestions rather than requirements. And success often depends more on social connections than technical qualifications. Cameroon represents everything that's exciting and challenging about modern Africa, a place where ancient traditions and cutting-edge technology coexist, where natural beauty remains largely undiscovered by mass tourism, and where $500 can fund lifestyle experiences that would cost thousands elsewhere. This isn't a destination for everyone, but for those willing to embrace different ways of living and seeing the world, it offers rewards that go far beyond simple tourism. The country's greatest asset is on its oil reserves or agricultural potential. It's the creativity and resilience of people who have learned to thrive despite challenges that would defeat less adaptable populations. Cameroonians have created solutions to problems that Western development experts are still trying to understand, built social systems that actually work for their communities, and maintained cultural identities while adapting to global economic realities. For budget travelers, digital nomads, and adventure seekers willing to step outside their comfort zones, Cameroon offers experiences that simply aren't available anywhere else. Where else can you climb an active volcano, swim in the Atlantic Ocean spot, forest elephants, attend traditional festivals, and sample some of Africa's best cuisine, all while spending less per month than most people pay for car payments? The women here embody confidence and grace that comes from cultures that have always celebrated female strength. The food combines influences from across Africa and Europe to create flavors you won't find anywhere else. The music and dance traditions represent centuries of artistic evolution that continues today. The natural landscapes range from pristine beaches to ancient rainforests to volcanic mountains that dwarf anything in Europe or North America. But perhaps most importantly, Cameroon offers authenticity in an increasingly homogenized world. This isn't a place that has been packaged and marketed for tourist consumption. It's a living, breathing country where people go about their daily lives, solve their own problems, celebrate their own traditions, and welcome visitors who show genuine interest in understanding rather than just consuming local culture. The challenges are real infrastructure limitations, bureaucratic complications, cultural adjustments that can be frustrating for those accustomed to Western efficiency. But these same challenges create opportunities for experiences and personal growth that sanitized tourist destinations can't provide. Learning to navigate Cameroonian systems teaches skills and perspectives that prove valuable far beyond this particular country. Right. $500 here doesn't just stretch further. It provides access to a completely different way of experiencing the world. Instead of being a tourist who observes from a distance, you become a temporary community member who participates in daily life, builds relationships with locals, and gains insights into how different societies organize themselves and solve problems. Cameroon isn't trying to be the next Morocco or Kenya in terms of tourist popularity, and that's exactly what makes it special. It remains a place where travelers can have authentic experiences, where cultural traditions continue because communities value them rather than because tourists pay to see them and where. The lack of tourist infrastructure means interactions remain genuine rather than transactional. Comment 2 if you're ready to experience Africa's best-kept secret, because Cameroon won't stay hidden forever. Smart travelers are already recognizing what this country offers, and as word spreads, prices will rise, crowds will grow, and authenticity will become harder to find. Right now in 2025, Cameroon offers a window into an Africa that's rapidly disappearing elsewhere: vibrant, authentic, affordable, and completely unforgettable. So whether you're looking for adventure, cultural immersion, budget-friendly living, or just something completely different from the usual travel destinations, Cameroon deserves serious consideration. This is Africa in miniature, compact enough to experience deeply, diverse enough to surprise constantly, and authentic enough to change how you see the world. The question is, and whether Cameroon is worth visiting. It's whether you're ready for everything this incredible country has to offer. Don't forget to hit that like button if this opened your eyes to Cameroon's possibilities. Subscribe for more hidden destination content, and comment below with which part of Cameroon you'd want to experience first. Trust me, once you start researching this place, you'll understand why those who know keep coming back. Cameroon isn't just a destination, it's a revelation waiting to happen.